Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is the Straight No Chaser podcast, where we talk about human flourishing through money, technology, economics, and philosophy. This is our monthly Roundup episode number 2, and we talk about all the events Bitcoin related that have happened in the previous month. We have a full house today, Ricky, Oken, and Herman. We start the conversation off talking about 4 or 5 national currencies around the world that have suddenly experienced massive deflation in a pretty short space of time. We talk a little bit about political crackdowns, countries around the world that are trying to clamp down on this crypto and Bitcoin thing. This is normally quite a tech-heavy episode, the monthly roundup, but this time we really do talk a lot about the state of the world at the moment, nuclear issues between countries, Bitcoin issues between countries, where we feel things are not going well, chat about hopes for the future. We do chat about some tech issues as well at the end, so do stick around for that. But it is a great show. It's good to have everybody on board, and I know you'll love it. Good morning. Welcome, guys. Herman, Ricky, and Nikolai. Welcome to the episode. Awesome to have you guys here. Full house. And just from the topics that have been posted around for today, it's going to be awesome. Anyway, welcome, guys.
Thanks, Gavin. Good to be here.
And
great to see you the one hacking with the podcasting software for once. It's such a relief to be on the receiving end.
The struggle is real. Every day there's a new button to click. I don't know what they think they're doing.
Great to be back, guys. Great to be back.
Yeah, it's been a pretty interesting month. There's always something on the go. So it's great just to review back and see what have been the news items that have come through. I sort of kind of like to sort of stick them around like 3 basic topics. One is like anything in the political space that's happening, something in the tech side that's happening as well, and then anything that falls sort of in between, economics or whatever relevant things come through. As a matter of interest, just on the currency failures, I noticed in the month of August, we have had 4 fiat inflations of note that have taken place. I'll quickly read off here. North Korea, the Kwon has fallen from 8,300 won to 30,000 won per US dollar in 18 months. Iran, the rial has lost 99% of its value. The government is docking 4 zeros off their currency. Bolivia, annual inflation at 25%. Cuba, 25% devaluation to the US dollar. They've lost 94% value against the USD in the last few years. And Syria is hacking off 2 zeros from their currency. 99% loss in value since 2011. That is the month of August. Welcome to Fiat World.
Wow.
Fiat World / Pound World.
You can imagine what Christmas is going to be like.
I'm just impressed.
What Christmas?
Yeah, the North Korean currency has been so resilient. Like, also, who's trading? Who's buying North Korean currency for dollars? Like, who's actually making that trade?
I have no idea. I mean, I would be surprised that they can even get US dollars, and the fact that there's an official number. But I suppose it goes to show, it doesn't matter what the government says. People in the street are desperate, and people in the street will do what they need to do. There must be a black market for US dollars there. I'd hate to be the guy caught with a wad full of US dollars in my pocket, but I guess there's a market.
With that real, I mean, it lost 99.99% of its value over what period of time? Do you know?
Let me have a quick look.
I mean, but like 99.99% is so close to 100% that how does it still exist?
No idea. So they basically said a 10,000 real note is going to become a 1 real note. That's how they're taking 4 zeros off. So I think they just extrapolated and said I don't know what period of time that is. I'll have to go and check the report on that.
that doesn't make any sense. Like,
So-
I don't understand it.
So can we just go back to the North Korea one before we jump into Iran? I call bullshit on that story because North Korea has got zero trade with the USA, literally zero. But they have recently got a lot of trade with Russia. Russia's signed a security agreement with North Korea, and Russia's buying ammunition, artillery shells from North Korea. They've got a military cooperation. I mean, North Korea sent a bunch of troops over into Russia to fight in the coast region. So I think, if anything, there's probably a black market with the Russian ruble happening in North Korea. And we also know that North Korea is probably the most active nation-state user of Bitcoin as well. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Lazarus Group. The Lazarus Group is a state-sponsored North Korean hacking group. State-sponsored is the wrong word for it. It is a full-on army unit within the North Korean army, and they've been hacking people, exchanges, companies since 2011. They started out, their big infamous hack was they hacked Sony when Sony released that movie, The Interview, or was about to release the movie, The Interview, with Seth Rogen and James Franco, where they go and assassinate Kim Jong-un, Kim Jong-il, whichever one's the guy in charge now, the third generation one. And they got wind of this.
A haircut.
Well, they've all had killer haircuts in their defense. But so they got wind that this movie was being released, and they hacked Sony, and they went so far as to commit credit card fraud on contractors' ID numbers or social security numbers that they had managed to hack from the system. That's how hard they went. They got their ransomware back, from them, from Sony, and still just proceeded to fuck Sony up. So that's where they got started. They then hacked crypto. They hacked the central bank of Bangladesh to the tune of something like $400 million. No, it was in the billions, actually. They also then hacked over 1,000 ATMs simultaneously in India around the same time. And then only did they get into hacking crypto exchanges. And I think the Singaporean exchange OKX was the first one that they hacked. So anyway, North Korea has been very active in stealing Bitcoin since then. And that was around about, I think the OKX hack was like 2018. So to tie back to the USD thing, I don't know where that number comes from. That was probably an American who made that number up. But if anything, their currency is probably going to be pegged to Bitcoin at some point. Because that's really how they get Forex, and like their hacks have been funding the nuclear program. So, I just
had a thought pop into my head as you were saying that. What you were describing there, I thought to myself, I mean, the first people to use Bitcoin, the first major use case was obviously Silk Road. The first major application of Bitcoin as a form of money was to buy drugs. Obviously, most of it illegal drugs. It kind of makes sense that the worst countries in the world will be the first ones to adopt it. I wouldn't be surprised at all if places like North Korea have been stacking Bitcoin and getting their hands on as much of the stuff as possible for as long as possible, and that the cleaner countries, the so-called cleaner countries, are going to be the ones who hang on for as long as possible and try to do without it.
Like Germany.
Yeah, exactly. That's what just came to mind.
It's a good thesis. I buy into it.
It kind of mirrors the whole adoption curve on a personal level. If you think about it, the way it started off in Silk Road and so on. Anyway,
it's working out terribly for Germany, and it's working out really well for North Korea. Like North Korea is on the global stage is ascending, not descending. And, this is not an endorsement of North Korea. I think their system is absolutely an abomination. But you have to make the case that North Korea is on the rise. They are punching above their weight for where they are. They have nuclear weapons. They haven't been bombed like Iran has. And if anything, they've set the example that, listen, if you want to be able to hold your own against the world superpowers that are surrounding you, the way to do that is through acquiring nuclear weapons and stealing Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Like that's the example that they're setting, right? And you can argue that if Iran had have taken that process, that approach, they would not be in the position they're in today. And I think this is a good segue into Iran, but I think the hawkish voices within Iran are now saying, look, we told you so. We told you we should have gotten nuclear weapons because look, Israel is bombing us, and I'm fairly certain that campaign is going to start again. They were not pursuing nuclear weapons, at least explicitly so put forward by the Supreme Leader. I think in 2003, he already said so. But now the case has to be made that if they don't pursue nuclear weapons, they're going to get fucked up by the US and by Israel. Like the US would not have bombed them if they had nuclear weapons. And that goes back to their currency collapsing. If they had nuclear weapons, their currency wouldn't be collapsing because they wouldn't have been bombed as much as they were. There would be more faith and stability in the country. So the fiat world devaluation is one thing, but I think security kind of plays into this as well. Sorry, Gavin, go for it.
No, I think I've just got the title for this episode, and that is if you want to stand up, it's nuclear weapons and Bitcoin, and it's just easier to get the Bitcoin.
For now. For now.
So this ties into so Iran has got some options on the table right now. They have all this enriched nuclear material that was enriched to 60% that they need to push up to 90%, and then they have enough they can make bombs. But we know that Iran was mining Bitcoin, and they've got all this oil. And we know that there's a state that has nuclear weapons that accepts Bitcoin in North Korea, and that those two have been pushed together now. And so there's a case to be made that if Iran, in the position that Iran is in now, and they need to acquire a nuclear bomb ASAP to deter Israel from attacking them again, they can just go to North Korea and pay them a Bitcoin for a nuke. Like that's where we're at.
I was listening to Netanyahu on the what he's done. He's done a round of podcasts recently to try and improve the image, I suppose.
Was he on Ben Shapiro's show?
I don't know, but I heard him on the.
Okay, I see you, bro.
I heard him on the PBD podcast, Peter Bet David, and he was already talking. He was already talking about the next round of bombings and how they have to follow up this action with more strong action. And I mean, it hasn't even been how long has it been? 3 months?
It wasn't, not even. I mean, it was July, right?
Not even. Yeah, not even.
Yeah.
And yeah, dude. Anyway, sorry.
I mean, if we're going to delve into like geopolitics is a favorite subject of mine, and the game theory that's playing out here with Bitcoin in the mix is amazing. Like, for one, the Israelis went for a decapitation strike on Iran because they knew now or never. Like, we have to decapitate the leadership of Iran, because clearly they were concerned that something was happening where they would not be able to do that again in the future, right? They took a shot at the king and they missed. So they're never going to have that element of surprise again to be able to try to pull off that operation they did. Because like for the first 12 hours of that attack on Iran, they were trying to kill the Ayatollah, the supreme leader, and they were trying to decapitate the military. And it went so far as to say that they were reaching out to all the high-level military leaders in Iran and saying, if you do not turn on the leadership, we will kill your family. Like, I know it's war, but like for the most moral army on earth, that doesn't sound like a very moral thing to do, you know? But anyway, it's war. That's how it goes. But so they've lost that element of surprise, and now the Iranians are acquiring air defense systems from the Russians. They've got tight relations with the Chinese, and I don't think that the Israelis, they'll have to move very quickly, because if they don't, they won't have the opportunity again. Because the biggest chink in the Iranian army was the air defense, right? The Israelis basically got freedom over the skies to conduct air raids, but the Iranians had freedom over the skies to conduct missile raids on Israel as well. And that's what we saw. We were seeing, well, the Israelis clamped down on the media, so you didn't really see what was happening, how much damage was done. But the word on the street is that there was a significant amount of damage done to Israel. And what you also must understand about Israel is it's the size of Kruger Park, whereas Iran is the size of South Africa. Like, that's the difference. So Iran's things are all underground, you know, all of their missile bases are underground. You cannot put an air base underground. So Israel's biggest assets are sitting above ground, air bases, where they're launching all the airstrikes from, and Iran's are sitting underground. And so there's a discrepancy here. And so basically this is stacked against Israel. This is a fight they can't win, because they can bomb the mountains all they want, but they don't have the bunker buster bombs and the B-2s that America does. And in fact, there's not enough of those to destroy all of Iran's missile bases in the world. And Iran has a large amount of missiles that they can destroy all the air bases in Israel. And that's basically why America had to step in to try to stop this thing. So if you're Iran now, you look at your currency devaluing, you're like, cool, we need Bitcoin. We obviously can't use USD stable coins or whatever. We need Bitcoin to be able to preserve economic power. We need to be able to trade with all our partners. And we need to get nukes. It's going to get wild.
Silence.
It's that meme of the aliens looking at us like these guys are gonna bomb each other. We gave them technology and look at what they're doing. That meme.
Yeah.
Man,
it's crazy. And so one thing we should look at is what's happened to the Israeli shekel over this time frame as well. Like inflation is ripping in Israel too. It's obviously not as bad as Iran, but who's buying Israeli shekels outside of Israel? Like there isn't a big demand for their currency, and they've had periods of massive inflation for a long time. They've had like 3 iterations of the shekel. It's like a persistent problem in Israel. I don't really see a way out of this for them. They have 1 nuclear power plant at Dimona. They don't have any oil themselves. Gas, that's why they're trying to get Gaza, because there's a gas offshore. So, energy is kind of the most important thing here. And if you Iran, you can take out their energy facilities very easily with the hypersonic missiles they've got. So it may seem like Israel actually was on the front foot with that attack on Iran, but I actually think strategically Israel's massively on the back foot here.
I do not even know what to say to that. It is, thoughts that come to mind is, Jason Lowry's soft war thesis about, we've gone to the nuclear level, which is one step too far, that mutually assured destruction. We now need to step it back. And kind of funny that Bitcoin is the next level, or in his thesis anyway. And now you're saying the nuclear and the Bitcoin together seems to be the 2 big things in geopolitics. I see there's been a bunch of political crackdowns on crypto as well. I'll just quickly run through. Burma, they've got some new cybersecurity law where they outlaw VPNs, and they've even got illegal social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and that sort of thing. They can search your phones in the street and arrest you if they find those apps on your phone.
Like the
UK. Yes. Algeria's got something. They ban all crypto activity. And then there was an interesting one. Turkey detains this Argentinian ETH developer. I don't know if you heard about that one. The guy wrote a research paper, academic paper on something to do with Ethereum and blockchain and crypto. And he lands in Turkey, gets arrested because the government says, well, your paper went to assist other people to commit crime or something. So I think that, we've got this devaluing. Yeah, crazy, man. We've got this devaluing fiat thing on the one side, crazy. And then we've got political crackdown against the crypto space. It's a wild world.
Yeah. There was a...
But this isn't just political crackdown on the crypto space in general. This is a political crackdown on a writer that did a research paper on, an asset clause. Like that's beyond insane. Like it means who's not
a citizen of the country that he was arrested in, right, and didn't publish it in that country either.
In that country, write it about that country, like maybe didn't even mention that country in the entire research paper. This is insanity. Like first you're putting developers in jail for making software, just literally for writing code. And now you're putting, because again, code is like speech, right? Now people that are literally writing research papers using normal speech are no, that's crazy, guys. This is I think this is a lot bigger than most people are realizing.
I suggest everybody go and listen to the latest What Bitcoin Did episode where Danny interviews a guy that talks about Pegasus and related software developed by Pegasus was developed by the Israelis, but there's other versions of it out there. And I mean, we know I knew about it. It's not the first time I heard about it, but this person has done extensive research on this type of software that governments use to compromise your phone. But what's interesting about his description of it is that he describes how the process works, and it sounds like you're signing up for a Canva account, man. It's like you buy seats. And this is how it works. He literally says that this is how it works. Government would go, and it's a government who's got very little money would go to one of these companies and they'll say, okay, you can buy so many seats and so many compromises that last you over so many hours, and then you got to pay your next subscription to get to so many. And I sit there and I listen to this. I'm like, this is insane. This is like signing up for a fucking Google Workspace account I mean, I've got my team members, and I buy one seat per person, and I can get so many activations and so many in 30 days and so many activations. And it's like the level to which this has been, I don't know what the right word is. Commercialized is the wrong word. Sort of just streamlined, I suppose, is a better word, where it's kind of like walking to the local corner store and buying your preferred surveillance software off the shelf, and it comes ready made. All you need is an email address to sign up and an OTP. It's like it's just insanity. I don't see where this goes from here, but it's not going anywhere good. That's for sure.
It's going to be bad.
As terrifying as that is, we do know that the Israeli cyber unit was taken out by a series of hypersonic missiles during the 12-day war. And so someone must just check if Pegasus is still all right, because Pegasus might have been reduced to dust a few months ago, actually.
They'll tell you it was reduced to dust while they do some crazy things with it. But also, have you guys seen that the new iPhones, they're speaking about in development, will be internally chargeable or some weird thing like that? So literally, firstly, they took away our ability to take out the batteries, so that these things can't listen to us all the time. Now they're going to make it that it can maybe be remotely charged. Just to, hey, we're listening. I know you thought your phone was off, but hello. Crazy.
Yeah, I mean, guys, I got a new device the other day, and it can charge other devices just by holding the devices back to back. So if you've got like a set of wireless headphones, like AirPods or whatever, you can put it on the back of the device, and if it needs battery, it can piggyback off the battery off your phone and charge it. So okay, like what you're saying here, it's not that wild of a hypothesis. This tech exists. Obviously, you got to bring it close together. But I mean, who knows? They're zapping you from space with like a microwave to charge.
Yeah, the commercial versions work like that, but the ones that they're actually developing, those things probably chargeable. Like, that's what I love about sci-fi movies. They never lied to us. It's just a little bit wonky.
They charge off the hate generated off X on your phone. But just to step back to this currency thing, so there was a big move that happened this past week, where the Russians came out and said they called out in public what America is doing. And they said America is using the stablecoin system, Tether primarily, and stablecoins that are proliferating. They're using that as a mechanism to distribute the US dollar, maintain dollar hegemony. And then their plan is to devalue US debt once they've achieved a saturation point. So the Russians are calling them out openly about this now, which is very interesting, because obviously the Russians have known about this for a long time. They know that this is the play. So like the fact that they're mentioning it in public, like the Russians don't do anything without calculation, right? So it's very interesting that this is happening. And just as an anecdote, like I was at a conference in Joburg yesterday and the day before, and stablecoins are like the number one topic that all the payments cross-border people are talking about. And they were like, yeah, we need to figure out how to use stablecoins for our cross-border solution. And as you guys know, I run a company called Orange, and we use Lightning for cross-border payments, not stablecoins. And the reason why I think stablecoins are not going to work long-term is because the US is just pushing their inflation out to the rest of the world. And they're using stablecoins as another mechanism for purchasing US debt, so buying US treasuries, to act as a way to securitize the stablecoin. But so then they'll have an offshore dollar. And this is what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to just push dollar hegemony. But it's not going to work because the dollar, it doesn't matter if you wrap it in a stable coin, it's still a shit coin. It's still the USD, it's still going to inflate. And they have inflated it massively. And the only reason why the US dollar hasn't inflated more at home is because they've managed to offshore so many dollars. And that inflation is experienced by everyone else around the world now. So we've seen they've tried to cut spending with Doge. Didn't work. I mean, they try to get $1 trillion. They'll be lucky if they get 150 million out of this. 150 billion in savings out of this. Like, it's ridiculous. To quote Lynn Alden, like, nothing stops this train, right? Like, they are so addicted to debt. They cannot stop it. Politically, it can't be stopped. And so they're just going to keep pushing out the US dollar. Everyone else is going to experience all this inflation. And then other people are going to be like, well, the dollar's devaluing. My stable coin, cool, I've got this rail I could send value on by the dollar, but it's still just devaluing. It's now turning into the North Korean Kwon, right? And then they're going to come back to Bitcoin because fundamentally that's the value prop of Bitcoin. It is a store of value, and it is electronic peer-to-peer digital cash, which means it can do payments. And this is what Lightning is, right? Like, it's a payments network on top of Bitcoin. And so that's your solution to your inflation problem, and that's your solution to cross-border payments right there is Bitcoin on the Lightning network.
Yeah, but here's the problem with that, Ricky. Like, when you're talking about a consumer-based economy like the US, right? Debt is king. Like, to delete debt, they need people to buy into something, right? For them to be able to use that to then purchase Bitcoin. Like, all of these big companies, what are they doing? All of them that are selling stable coins, all these guys that created their own blockchains, they sold and bought more Bitcoin for themselves. So now the problem becomes, how do Bitcoiners release? Because again, Bitcoin, you can't print more. So like, it has to come from somebody that either they're going to have to, like they did with Ross, where they gave him freedom, but they didn't give him back his Bitcoin. They kept all of that, right? So they're just going to keep locking up people that have Bitcoin and just, accumulating it that way is what I'm seeing. Or they're going to release things like the Trump coin and all these other coins that people are going to be like, oh, great, there's a way for us to make money, and then take that money and then go buy more Bitcoin. Like, the cycle continues. But at the end of the day, my problem with the wording of stable coins is that it's stable. Stable to what? If the goal of Bitcoin was to like say, hey, we don't have to deal with the US dollar anymore and the US dollar is going to die, how are we then using something that's pegged to the thing that we're here to help destroy, the control factors of? I just don't get it. It's like a misnomer for me. Somebody needs to explain the logic in that.
I mean, they're not stable coins. They crypto dollars. That's what they should be called. They shouldn't be called stable coins because I just wanted to say there's one upside to the proliferation of stable coins, which is that I can't wait for the day that the market cap of Tether flips the market cap of Ethereum. It's going to be a glorious day, because it'll just prove the point that there's no reason for any of that crap to exist other than the proliferation of so-called stable coins, and those things are temporary anyway. So I mean, what more do you need to know than that? And the other thing that's interesting, I don't know if you guys saw, but I briefly saw this headline. I don't know how much substance there is to it, but the ANC was calling for the South African Reserve Bank to, I don't know if they wanted to prioritize the creation of jobs over the stability of the currency, because we've had a relatively stable currency in South Africa compared to many other places in the world. And I think one of the reasons is because the Reserve Bank has prioritized the stability of the currency over the creation of jobs. And the ANC has called for them to do the opposite, which in my understanding, I don't understand these things as much as some of you probably do, but in my understanding, that basically means we want you to print money so that you can create the illusion that the economy is growing, because we can't grow the economy on our own because we're too useless. And that's basically money printing and inflation. That's how I understand it.
Yep. Yeah, totally. So once again, at this conference I went to, the Seamless conference in Joburg, shout out, great conference they held, but like, it was like a payments conference, and it was just full of bankers and central bankers and payment bros. And like, this is the narrative that they all spinning here, right? It's like, We need to use stable coins for payments. We need to use CBDCs. And like, so they've all come to realize that they need to have some kind of digital money, right? And in fact, they love it. They love that idea because it means they can control the inflation. The central banker loves the idea of a CBDC. It disintermediates commercial banks. It means they can go direct to consumer. So they don't have to have a B2B2C model anymore. They can have a B2C model, right? That's what the central banks are after. But the bigger, picture for us as individuals is like the freedom versus tyranny kind of matrix and where we want to fall on this. And so like countries like Turkey arresting people for free speech in another jurisdiction that they think they can just arrest someone when they come through their country. Like it becomes a really scary authoritarian world. So like where do we find pockets of freedom? What was the name of that place in Atlas Shrugged where all the value creators went to? Galt's Gulch? Yeah, that was the name of it. Where they all fled to because it, promoted freedom and let businessmen do business. Like for every kind of action, there's a reaction. And I think we're going to see more and more places pop up that provide security and freedom for people. And where it's going to be like an attractant for people with capital, so Bitcoiners, because there's this long trend of just things going to shit and politicians doing dumb things and fleecing everyone. And like it's nowhere is it more apparent than like big conferences like this. We see like all the intelligentsia of these this like accumulation of bad ideas in one place, just preaching how these bad ideas are gonna solve our problems, and no, they're gonna make it infinitely fucking worse, But people are gonna shrug, they're gonna leave, they're gonna move. People with capital are definitely gonna move, but the question is, how do you move without being nabbed in the middle, on your way to this better place? So I don't know where I'm going with this point, but like things are gonna change rapidly.
So the good news is we have Bitcoin. That's at the end of the day, it's the 12 words in your head. You get on the plane, you get out of there. And we all agree, it's the first time in human history that has been an option for people. So I don't know where to go to, though. I might just add that because it does seem to be a lot of bleakness out there. The so-called Western countries, which are supposed to be the top tier, are crumbling. We're seeing the end of the US sort of empire. I saw a headline yesterday about Malay in Argentina, that his party has just suffered a massive loss at some election thing. Now, it must be too soon for a national election, I would guess. Maybe it's a provincial election. But, his party got 30-something%, and the left-leaning Peronist guys have, got 70% of the vote. So that to me is... It's the scariest news I've actually heard for a long time, because there was one guy who not only talked the talk, but he walked the walk, and he had huge improvements in the economy. And yet with the improvement, obviously there were enough people suffering with the changes that he had to implement to pull them right. And those people have now just gone and they're voting for the far lefty socialist guys again that are going to promise something for nothing. It's frightening. It was quite depressing to hear that news, because if that happens there, what hope do the other so-called first world countries that are trying to incrementally make change? And you mentioned Doge, gave it a good crack, very public, and miserably failed. So at the end of the day, it's depressing news out there. But and Bitcoin is the flight to safety. I think we all agree on that.
Democracy is a scam, man.
So listen,
if government is for the people and by the people, but the people are retarded, like, what are you gonna get?
Retarded government, right?
Yeah, exactly. Which is it's what we have, man. Like I like democracy is the god that failed, to quote Hans Hermann Hoppe. I think that when you have people that are able to print money from nothing and dangle a carrot in front of poor people that have been made poor by that same government, then you dangle a carrot to be like, here's some free stuff, even though we ruined your life. They're going to go for the free carrot because people respond to incentives. like that's a downward spiral. Like I don't see how democracy can self-correct. Like if you look at the Western democracies in the world right now, they're in an absolute shambles. None more evident than the UK, which I just spent 2 months in and just came back from. There is a great replacement taking place in the Anglosphere in the West right now, where people are being imported en masse. And that is because these aging populations in these Western countries are not producing enough children. And these Western countries have blown up massive bubbles in obligatory spending for pensions, etc. And they don't have the youth and the economic activity to pay that. So they need to bring in more young workers to do that. And that's really what they try. I think in the best case, the best interpretation of what they're doing, that's what they're trying to do, is to bring in more people to come and, pay for those things over time so the system doesn't collapse. But this system is going to collapse because the culture that they've imported is incompatible with the culture of the UK. Those people are not working. They're all on benefits. And in fact, they're dangling a carrot of benefits to get them there. So like, it just seems to me like they're trying to collapse the society. So I think that the solution here is, maybe not a solution, I think what we might see is a very large period of instability and fighting, and you might see the emergence of Bitcoin warlords. And then maybe we get a Bitcoin king and we get a Bitcoin kingdom that can offer protection to Bitcoiners, and maybe he buys nukes on the black market for the North Koreans, and then that's how you get stability. But Bitcoin warlords, you heard it here first.
I think, okay, firstly, Bitcoin warlords is hilarious. But I think the problem here is globally, governments all around the world have for too long kept the people in the dark about things like inflation and what is actually happening, and also kept them economically inept in the fact of them not having financial literacy at all, to the point that now, as Ricky said, you've got a bunch of people that have no clue what's going on, voting for other people that have no clue what's going on. It's the blind leading the blind in many societies around the world, not just in Africa, just globally, right? And what's happening is the chickens are coming home to roost in the fact that there's nobody to be able to keep up the facade in a way that is still sustainable. So now everything is crumbling because it was always going to crumble. The question is, how do you save it? Is Bitcoin the savior, or is why Bitcoin exists the saving grace? If more people are talking about, okay, Bitcoin was created, but it is still just a tool. Why was the tool created? What does it actually solve beyond just monetarily, but even just in the way that most Bitcoiners change their lives and what they aim at and how they spend time with their family? All that changes because Bitcoin is more than just money. It's about why. Why do we need a better money than what was there? What was the problem with people being in charge of every little aspect of how you can spend or loan or any of that? It's also transferent on, should people be able to tell you where you should be able to live if you want to live somewhere else? Or should you be able to have the opportunity to then move? And how does that come about? Should you be able to teach your children the way that you think would better serve them in the future? Or must you go along the rules of a mandated system, and why? So these are the things that I think Bitcoin brings along, is the questioning of the norm and the status quo, to say, wait, but does it really have to continue to be that way? And in that, I think we can reset a lot of what has been done. But again, is it in the interest of governments and central banks to say, hey, let's take the shackles off our people and allow them to actually understand what's going on? Or are they just going to keep doing this until Rome burns? That's the question.
No, they're going to keep doing it till Rome burns. I have zero faith in politicians. Let's take COVID, for example, right? They locked us in our houses for varying amounts of time, depending where you are in the world, nowhere more so than Australia, Melbourne specifically. But they locked us in our houses. There's been zero accountability. Not one of those politicians have been held accountable. I haven't seen any tar or any feathers, and I want to see tar and feathers. None of this has happened. You saw what they did in Nepal yesterday. They dragged the Minister of Finance through the street in his underwear. That's what can happen when people get khatful. And they burnt down the Prime Minister's house. They burnt down the two opposition parties' leaders' houses, burnt down Parliament. That's what can happen when things bubble over. I'm not necessarily calling for that, but all I'm saying is this is what can happen. But we live in a system where politicians are incentivized to keep making things worse, because they just want to keep the status quo going. But they will err on the side of authoritarianism, not freedom, when the rubber hits the road. Not one government in the world erred on the side of freedom during COVID. I mean, they're all marching in lockstep. You can make without what you will. Do you think they all got orders issued from the same place? I kind of do. But no accountability. And the fact that we had Bitcoin protected us against the inflation from that, and the subsequent knock-on effects economically from that. The four of us can all attest to that. Most people were wiped out financially, but our freedom was still taken away. But if we had a strong Bitcoin warlord, that wouldn't have happened.
So, guys, do you think that we've reached a point where people are now going to be just doing it for themselves? There's a meme going around, you can just do things. I see that on the Nostr a lot. Everyone's just posting stuff like that. And an example that comes to mind is Urania. That little community, I couldn't even find it on the map, to be honest. I don't quite know exactly where they are. But it seems to me that there's a bunch of people that have realized there's nothing they can do about the macroeconomy and the larger scale political realm. And they've kind of just said, stuff it. You guys do what you want to do. We're going to do what we want to do. And they've just made this little community, and they are building roads by hand. They've got running water, electricity, sewage systems. They manage it themselves. They don't need anything from anybody else. And I actually respect that. I mean, I'm not interested in the politics behind the thing, but a group of people who've just decided we're just going to take care of ourselves. Do you think that we're moving into that now? Because clearly governments cannot do it. Politicians can only lie. Governments can only fail. Fiat can only go to zero.
I mean, no, sorry, go for it, Ogun.
No, go ahead, man.
I was gonna say very quickly on what Ricky said earlier, which is democracy being a scam. I think democracy is a failed attempt to decentralize power, and I think ultimately the only successful way to organize a fair society is a way where power is so far decentralized that it becomes impossible for human nature to do what it ultimately wants to do. I mean, this is again this person that talks about this. I wish I remembered his name, but I'm so bad with names. But the guy was talking about that did the interview on What Bitcoin Did about Pegasus. He constantly references human nature, and he says that it's just in human nature to want to control things. It's just how it is. It's how we are. It's how we are wired. Or any one of us would probably make the same decision if we were in that position of power. And so unless you figure out a way to decentralize power, what you're going to end up with is exactly what we have at the moment. And I don't think it's going to happen voluntarily. I think it's going to happen rather chaotically. But what we'll end up with is either a sort of a apocalyptic world or a world where people figure out a way to decentralize power. And I think that's what Urania is, and I think that's what democracy is a failed attempt at. I don't think democracy actually succeeds in decentralizing power. But I think places like Urania, communities like that's ultimately the only way that people really can live successfully, is in small groups. This idea that you can group 50 million people together and somehow appoint 500 people to manage the interests of 50 million people, it's absurd. It's very beneficial for a small group of people to do that because they gain huge power, influence, and money. But it's absurd to think that you can manage the interests in the interest of the ordinary person if you jam people together in groups of 50 million or more. It's insane. So that's probably where we'll end up. I just don't know how we're going to get there. But we'll get there.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Herman. Like it's a ridiculous notion, and to add insult to injury is that we've been lied to perpetually about it and about freedom. So, for example, people get lied into wars all the time under the notion of freedom, right? Like that's their favorite one, especially America. They love doing that. Like why are you invading Iraq? Oh, because the Iraqis hate our freedom. Why are you invading Afghanistan? No, because they hate you, because they hate your freedom. Like it's the most ridiculous thing. They're invading Afghanistan to control the heroin routes. right? Like that's why they invaded Afghanistan. And so they will, the people in power will lie all the time about freedom and democracy and decentralization. But that doesn't change the fact that the long-term trend over the past 300 years has been towards decentralization, right? And so I guess the bigger picture is like what has happened within the past 300 years that has led to that. It's not been us organizing and taking power back from the oligarchs and the aristocracy that controlled us. I think that plays a role, but it's not the causal factor. I think the causal factor is technology that we have created that has led to the decentralization. Obviously, the printing press was one, because that decentralized control of our minds away from the church and the religious organizations that previously controlled knowledge. Distributing the ability to read obviously followed that, and then people can make up their own minds on things. And so Bitcoin is obviously a radical step function in like distributing value and how you store value. And it's built on top of all these other technologies. And so the knock-on effects of that are kind of unquantifiable. But I hope that will lead to greater freedom over time, maybe not in our lifetimes, but definitely over time. And we can push back the Leviathan, which is the state that's ever encroaching. And the best opportunity we have for that is within a weak state framework. So let's take the Urania example. During lockdown, if Urania wanted to during lockdown, they could have said locally, listen, guys, there's no lockdown restrictions here. We're not doing this. But the police would have probably rolled into Urania, because Urania is still part of South Africa. And the police would have rolled in there to enforce those things. But if they had have just quietly not enforced themselves in Urania and not told anyone, and no one, made any posts about it, the police would not have known, and then people would have enjoyed a lot more freedom in Urania. And we don't know for a fact. We don't know what happened. That might have been the case, because they live in a little enclave. But they have their own values that tie them together. And I think Urania is a great case study for the rest of the world of what you could do when you share common values and you can build something around yourself like that. So, I mean, yeah, it can definitely be done. And it's kind of the blueprint for how we build citadels for ourselves, and that's why I think I'm bullish on South Africa as a geographical region for us to do this, because we have a retarded state that is largely incompetent and may not have the ability to levy force like they used to, or even presently do, when they're coming up against a group of individuals that are highly motivated and have a large amount of resources, especially with the changes in asymmetric warfare that's developed, as we've seen in Russia, Ukraine. Drones kind of have changed everything. And ultimately what it comes down to is the state is there to enforce, has the monopoly on violence. And if anyone wants to push back on the state, they need to have the ability to enforce violence themselves and push back. And this just ties back to the Bitcoin Warlords story once again. But this is where kind of this can all go. So I'm kind of bullish in South Africa that we can build our own future here as the world is kind of falling apart. Let me tell you, I don't think it's going to be in the collective West where this stuff happens. The government's far too strong. The people are far too psyoped. Things are too far gone. In South Africa, we're like in the Goldilocks position here. So yeah, I'm hopeful that we can build our own kind of Bitcoin oriented future here where people can thrive, build our own Gold's Gulch.
Well, talking about building, sorry, Nikolai, you go for it.
No, I was just going to say for the listeners over there, basically what they're saying is everybody's going to go back to living in villages, and you're going to have your village chieftains again. And everybody will negotiate. I don't know how national resources are going to be negotiated amongst all these villages, because yes, Bitcoin is really important, but we still have to figure out who's going to have the fishing rights, who's going to have the mining rights between all of us within our own constituencies. So yeah, I just think my comment on this is that we've never had a system that has worked. That's why we keep trying to evolve the system. I do think that there is something that could work probably, but it would take human beings looking at each other as human beings first and trying to build for the human race moving forward. That's going to, as Ricky said, probably not in our lifetimes, but yeah, time and knowledge. So open source everything. Open source everything. That's my comment on this. Open source knowledge, open source technology, open source everything. And we would probably get to somewhat of a manageable future like that. sooner rather than later. Yeah, that's what I wanted to say.
It's the only way we can push back against the oligarchs and the
Don't
oligarchy.
use
and
stable coins.
Yeah, nice, man. So I did want to just quickly fly through some tech bullet points. We've had a great discussion about global politics and that sort of thing. It can be a bit of a depressing topic. And I'd like to, finish on a positive here. But so, Nikolai, you mentioned something about mini scripts, something that you wanted to chat about. Fire off, man. What are your thoughts there?
All right. Firstly, so why I wanted to talk about this is recently the debates on Twitter between different Bitcoin camps, as there always are, has been what people are terming the node wars between core and nuts. But I think what people have missed is some of the innovations that have come about that actually changed the way that we could do inheritance planning from here onwards out. I mean, Miniscript allows you to, let me actually just read from their own description of, at its heart, Miniscript is like a box of Lego bricks for Bitcoin spending rules. Each brick is a small, well-defined condition, such as a key must sign, a time must pass, or a secret must be revealed. So what this means is if the four of us are sitting here, it changes the way you can do multi-signatures, because you could say Herman and Ricky's keys can sign, but if none of them sign in 90 days, then Gavin or Oaken's keys can sign for this transaction to happen. So now you can say things like, even if you look at Liana Wallet, that was the first one to actually implement Miniscript and then in their product put it out, they have a way that it says, okay, my key for like my private key, if it doesn't sign any transactions in my wallet for 6 months, then my wife's key will be activated and she can now move the funds that were associated with my key. So if you die unexpectedly, or if you lose your memory or something happens, you could still gain access to your funds, your Bitcoin, because you've now made it that literally in the setup of your transactions and your wallets, that you can have somebody else activated after. So now you can literally say your children, you can activate their key only spendable when they turn 21 or 18 on that exact block, and you can then, but now it's been made so easy that you don't have to write the scripts. It's literally like saying so and so. You click, it's clicked on buttons, and I think this is more that more people need to be talking about the fact that we have these tools now that totally delete why you need to have a lawyer doing anything inheritance planning wise with your Bitcoin at all. You do not need that third party there. And yeah, that was one of the things I wanted to discuss. I'll stop there before I mention the other one.
Oaken, is that, so that's just for the listeners, that's at a protocol level, right? So it's not like a wallet specific thing. It's not like just you have to use this Liana wallet to do this in the future, right? You can set it up with Liana wallet, but like that's actually attached in the data associated with that transaction, right? So when you broadcast that,
right,
transaction,
so that it's a BIP. It's BIP 379. It's a Bitcoin improvement protocol, but it's Miniscript. It's pretty awesome. Like you should read through it. Like you'll enjoy it, Ricky. Like I really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
I enjoy
yeah,
Liana wallet. Like and nunchucks. So like
So it's like at a protocol level. So it's like it means that these tools can be used on the protocol agnostic of wallets. Like you say, get rid of the fucking lawyers. Amazing.
I'm glad that they've got that down at the protocol level, because it sounds a little bit like, if you're not careful, you could be like a monkey throwing your thumbs at nuclear launch codes. You don't want to stuff up a Miniscript and you lock yourself out and you've got to wait until you're 90 years old before something can activate. So, awesome tool, but jeepers, I think I would sweat bullets setting this thing up. Lots of little tests. Have you messed around with it yourself?
Exactly. I have lots of little tests. You're right, Gavin. That's exactly what you need to do. Be like, okay, let's give it a week. Please let my money be. Please let my money. Okay, my money is clear. I can do it now. And then again, my thing has always been, I never mention tools that I haven't tested myself. If I haven't tested it out, like at least for a month, I'm not telling people about it, because just now it goes away, or there's a backdoor that we just didn't find because I didn't test it. So. Yeah, and the fact that Miniscript has been around, it's just that these are the only two wallets that said, hey, I think this is a great thing, and let's run with it. I think that's amazing. The second thing I wanted to discuss that nobody's talking about and that everybody should be talking about is the fact that we have blocks that are confirming with transaction fees that are less than 1 Satoshi. Right? That's a problem. I think it's a really big problem, especially for miners, because miners are going to start merge mining, and they're not going to just be mining on the Bitcoin blockchain if this trend continues, right? What happened the last time when inscriptions were around was fees were astronomical. It was like 100 and something, 400 and something Satoshis to get a transaction through. Right now, the opposite is happening with this entire Bitcoin node war debate, is that fees are dropping to the point where miners are picking up transactions that have minimal fees that are lower than 1 sat per virtual byte. I think that is something that we should be discussing as the Bitcoin community. And what happens if this trend continues? Like, what is profitability to miners? What does that look like in a sense like that? Because again, at some point, right? Okay, not in our lifetimes probably, but like in 2140, you will not have the Coinbase transaction coming through. You won't have that subsidy. It will only be the transaction fees. But if transaction fees are on a downward trend continuously, and we don't do something to bring them back above 1 Satoshi, what is the incentives for miners to continuously mine blocks on Bitcoin past that? Like, I think this is also things that people need to start thinking about. Yeah.
So just for the audience, can you just clarify the 1 sat per VByte? I mean, I understood that was the minimum. Anytime I've ever done a transaction, 1 sat per VByte has been the lowest I've been able to spend on a transaction. On doesn't matter what wallet I'm using. So how are the guys getting below that?
I wish I had an answer for you, Gavin. I've been trying to look into what's exactly going on, because like I also can't make a like from the software that I'm using. So either they're literally writing up their transactions themselves and not using conventional software that we're using to do this, or they're maybe going out of band and speaking to miners directly and saying, look, because if you look at the block that just confirmed, let me just get you that number. Sorry, it didn't just confirm. It's like it's now what? How many blocks ago? 914044. If you look at the expected block and the actual block, there's like so much gap of nothingness. And then you go look at the transaction fees and the total fees, right? Okay, it's 0.018. But if you look at the actual, so you go like something like time chain stats, and you look at the average fee rate, it's 3 sats, right? But then if you go even lower and you look at the fees versus subsidies, and you start seeing almost half of these fees are at less than 1 Satoshi. Now, the question, as you've rightly stated, is how? Why? This is my question too. We should be, this is what we should be figuring out and yelling around about on Twitter, is how in the hell are people making this happen? And what happens if this continues? What does it look like for the not only the security of Bitcoin, but just continuous block propagations? Like, how does this continue?
I guess this brings us right back to the mining centralization issue, because the only way people are able to put transactions through, get a miner to confirm those transactions outside of the network, is they pick up the phone and they phone Foundry or they phone whoever these big boys are and say, listen, guys, we're trying to do this thing. We know you're probably going to get the next 7 out of 10 blocks that are coming through. This is what we want to do. We'll pay you out and about around the side. A little bit of cash on the side of the table here, and you confirm this transaction. And that is clearly not how the system's supposed to work.
I mean, Gavin, just to let you know, the block that just confirmed now again, also average fee rate 0.00 sats per virtual byte. Like, what are we doing here? And I hear you on the miner centralization, but it also goes to show how are people using the current layer 1 blockchain. If we're able to even get sub 1 sat transactions through, that means that we're not using the layer one blockchain, right? That's what it means, like as it's supposed to be used. That's a problem. we're saying because minor centralization is a problem. But if everybody's using the same Lightning service providers, LSPs, right, and moving everything off chain, okay, that's good for instantaneous settlement. But what does that do for transactions on base layer? Like, are there enough? The other question that people need to be asking.
So I guess it's, as you say, we've gone through stages where the transaction fees have been super high, and then everyone's in a flat panic. We got to get Lightning working properly. This is not working. We need all these other technologies. I know ARC in the month of August actually did their first real world test case. And ARC is one of those. I don't know if you call them a layer 2 or a layer 3, but it's an idea, and the idea is to make Bitcoin transactions quicker and cheaper. And I think it's sort of spread the Bitcoin around a bit. I'm not sure how they handle the UTXO thing. I'm not that technical. But so we have this thing with fees going up, then fees going down, and all this tech coming in. And also one of the other things, Jack Dorsey's block company has come up with this proto-rig. And I think that's an important thing, because that's a change in the actual hardware infrastructure where you can start sliding damaged parts, worn out parts out and just replacing it, almost like a plug and play on a miner. So that's super positive to me as well. So there could be lots of things that are simultaneously trying to tackle this issue, and that's always driven by fees. That's the whole thing about Bitcoin. It's incentives. When fees go up, everyone gets creative. When fees go down, everyone better get creative. Is it something to worry about, or if we step back in 5 years and look back at this, is it like just a blip on this up and to the right trajectory?
Oh, I thought you were asking in general. Ricky, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I think up and to the right. The present situation we are seeing with fees being as low as they are, I think, is an aberration from the trend. As soon as nation states start aping in, when this thing heats up, you're going to see fee rates back in the hundreds of sats per byte again. I think fees are low at the moment because a lot of stuff has moved to layer 2. I can attest this because I run a Lightning company that does transactions on Lightning, and we see this big volume there. None of that shows up on chain. So, that's definitely happening. It's definitely something that's happening. But yeah, I think fees, I think long-term miners will be getting their fees again, because when North Korea needs to do a nuclear deal with Iran, and when the Bitcoin warlords of Urania need to buy nukes from North Korea, they're going to do that on chain.
Good explanation. Good explanation. I like how you threw the Bitcoin warlords back in there. I think that's what this episode should be called: Bitcoin warlords of the villages.
We might be little warlords, but we're warlords.
Yeah. Look, but listen, guys, I've unfortunately got to jump. I've got another meeting I've got to slide into. So if you'll excuse me, I need to shoot.
Awesome. Thanks, Ricky. Yeah, we're slightly over time, guys. I do want to respect your time. Quick closing thoughts. Ricky, you feel free to gap it if you need to, but final round, quick thoughts.
I'll just quickly leave my details. If anyone wants to find what we're doing, my company is called useorange.com. So otherwise known as Orange, www.useorange.com. And then my other company where I do sell Bitcoin hardware and do Bitcoin consulting, etc., is bitcoinonly.io. So if you've got any Bitcoin hardware requirements in South Africa, check out my website, hit me up, do a consult. So I've got a whole bunch of Start9 servers coming in at the moment for running home servers. Oaken can tell you all about Start9 servers. Hadamard's on the receiving end of one of those servers as well. So those are great. You should definitely get those to get all your things off the cloud. Cool. That's me. Guys, thank you very much. I got to shoot.
Cheers, Ricky.
Cheers, dude.
Herman, some closing comments from your side?
I'll just repeat myself and say, don't use stablecoins, use Bitcoin. You're gonna find yourself living in a world where you're no better off than you are today or with the CBDC if stablecoin usage becomes the norm. Use Bitcoin, try and use it in a self-sovereign way if you can, if it's at all possible. But try and avoid using stable coins because they're not actually stable. That's all.
Awesome. Okay.
I agree with Herman. We should firstly rename stable coins so that they sound more like what they are. And my closing statement is open source everything. Open source knowledge, open source tech, open source everything. But remember to charge for your time. Your time is not open source for people. Like, your time is the most precious thing in the world. So open source everything else.
Awesome, man. Yeah, the stable coin, we should call them guaranteed to go to 0 coins. There might be an acronym we can come up with that's a bit catchy, but who knows? Anyway, guys, awesome. I appreciate your time as always. Sorry for running a few minutes over, but thanks for your grace. Have a fantastic month, and we'll pick it up and run through whatever happened in the month of September.
Cool, man.
Cheers.
Adios.
Cheers. Have a good one, guys. Cheers.
Bye.